Hi there! Welcome to our class number 3. This is Professor Josibel Rojas, and today we're gonna be talking about used to and get used to. Welcome to your class. Let's start talking about used to. We use this variable phrase to talk about repeated actions or habitual situations in the past, which we don't do in the present. Its translation in Spanish is solía. It means this variable phrase is used in the past simple tense. We use it before the verb. For example, I used to play video games with my friends in my house. I'm referring to an action that I did in the past and was part of my routine in the past. But now I don't. I don't play video games nowadays. Now, let's check the structure. For you to create an affirmative sentence with used to, you have to place the verbal phrase used to after the subject and before the principal verb of the sentence. For example, I used to play video games with my friends in my house. Let's continue with the negative form. For you to create a negative sentence, you have to place the negative adverb didn't before the verbal phrase used to. But pay attention. In this case, you don't put letter D to the verb use. Why? Because we're working in past simple tense. If you're using didn't, so it's not necessary to put the verb use in past. So let's read the example. I didn't used to play video games with my friends in my house. Then let's practice the interrogative sentences. For you to form an interrogative sentence, first you have to write the auxiliary did, then the subject plus used to with no d, the verb, the complement, and the question mark. Remember, we're working in past simple tense. That's why we're using the auxiliary did. Let's read it. Did I used to play video games with my friends in my house? Usages. This is for you to remember about the usages of this variable phrase. Number one, talking about past habits. For example, when I was younger, I used to play soccer every day. So I'm talking about a part of my daily routine in the past, something that was habitual for me in the past. So I use used to. Number two, talking about past situations. For example, she used to live in London, but now she lives in Paris. So it's part of my past situation. I lived in London, but now I don't. I don't live there anymore. So let's continue. Number three, talking about states which are not true nowadays. For example, I used to have long hair, but I cut it a few months ago. But I cut it a few months ago. Now, let's talk about the verbal phrase get used to. Pay attention because this is completely different to the first one. Get used to is a verbal phrase that describes the process of becoming accustomed to something, typically a new or unfamiliar situation. In Spanish, it is translated like acostumbrarse a. So it talks about adaptation, processes, and changes. For example, I'm getting used to my new school. So I'm in the process of adaptation to my new school. And pay attention, the verbal tense of the sentence is according to what I need. So I have to be careful because the verbal tense in which I'm using this verbal phrase changes frequently. Let's look next sentence. It took me a while to get used to the new software. So I'm talking about a situation in the past. It took me a long time to get familiar with the software. Let's continue. She will get used to the cold weather eventually. So, this sentence expresses she is in the process of adaptation to a new weather. And this was our class for today. Congratulations! Now you know Unit 3, used to and get used to. Thank you very much for your attention. See you next time. Bye bye.